Greetings, this is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX777. Today we're going to talk about manifestation. We're going to talk about manifestation, specifically a key that's been hidden right in our faces, as are all occult secrets. They're not really secrets. The truth is not hidden from one who knows how to see. Most of these so-called occult secrets are hidden from the profane. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's hidden from people who are stupid or vulgar. It means that occult secrets are hidden from people who don't have the necessary filters removed. Filters that were given to us by culture and assumption and superstition. People who don't have those filters removed are blocked from certain understandings that would lead them to see the obvious. So we're going to talk about the 7 Hermetic principles. You may have heard about those from this book called the Kybalion. We're not specifically going to talk about those principles. We're going to talk about something that might be underlying those principles as derived from Qabalah. And we're going to read a short excerpt from Dion Fortune, in specific, her book, The Circuit of Force. In a masterful way, as she always does in her masterful way, she details what's necessary for magical manifestation. And it is hidden within one of the Hermetic principles. So hopefully you've studied the 7 Hermetic principles. You know what that's all about. In fact, who can go ahead and tell me the 7 Hermetic principles? Somebody put in the chat one of the Hermetic principles, and let's see if we can get all 7. Let's see if we can get all 7. Peace and greetings to all my favorite people. While you guys put those Hermetic principles in the chat, peace and greetings to everyone. Mel Hawk says, well met. I've been trying to catch a live for a while. Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. Peace, peace. Etheric, peace and greetings. Anamali, peace, peace. Always good to see you. Starlion, peace, peace. Black Wraith, peace. MC Maestro, peace, peace, my bro. Minosis, peace. Peace, peace. So, let's talk about these Hermetic principles. What do you know? We know the principle of gender. We know the principle of polarity. We know the principle of mentality, mind, right? What else do we have? Starlion says, perfect subject today of all days, the day of Jupiter. I experienced some great synchronicity. I randomly got $100. Sweet day, LOL. Thank you, Ja. Yeah, that's pretty dope. I love it. I love it. Congratulations, and may you get even more abundant blessings. MC Maestro says vibration, nothing rests. Absolutely. Minosis says gender, right? Correspondence. What else we got? What else we got? Surely someone in this audience knows the 7 Hermetic principles. That's the basic stuff. That's elementary. That's elementary. That's level 1. You know the names of a bunch of demons and angels, but you don't know the 7 Hermetic principles. We have our priorities mixed up. We got rhythm. We got causation. My notes says I want to type them all. You know, I'm not talking to you specifically. I know that you are aware and versed on these things. Well, let's get down to it, shall we? Let's get down to it. So, I've talked about this book 100 times, 300 times. If you're somebody that studies the Qabalah and Tarot at the same time, then this is a book that you ought to have on your shelf. If you don't, maybe consider getting it, because it is full of wisdom and full of those keys that I mentioned that help you to see without filters. The Kabbalistic Tarot, it's written by Robert Wang. This is an excellent book that I continue to go through and continue to get revelations on things. So I would recommend that you get this book as well. There's something in here that I'd like for you to write down. Okay, and this deals with the tarot cards. And in a way, tarot is the Kabbalah unfolded. It is the Kabbalah in piece by piece so that they can be arranged and deciphered in real time. So there's a level of understanding of these cards and the meaning behind these cards that can lead you to see the forces that are at work in existence. So if you have this text, I would invite you to go to page 127. Yeah, go to page 127 if you have this text. All right, and the thing that I would like for you all to write down is a set of correspondences, 7 correspondences, okay? Now, there are patterns within this tree, patterns all over the place. There's a pattern of 4 elements, there's patterns of the 12 zodiac signs, and there's the patterns of the 7 planets, okay? So we've got these 7 planets, and here's what I want you to write down. I want you to write down the 7 planets. Here's what it's going to be. You're going to write down the planet, and then you're going to write down the tarot card associated with it, and then you're going to write down a specific correspondence to go along with it. And you're going to write this down because it's going to help you in your understanding of these particular forces that we're dealing with. And this does relate to manifestation, but it also relates to understanding the tarot, and it also relates to understanding the Kabbalah. So first, go down the list and write down Mercury, Venus, the moon, Mars, Jupiter, the sun, and of course Saturn. Write those going down on your list. Framestar Films, peace and greetings. Okay, so we got these 7 planets. And as you know, the tarot cards line up with these correspondences of planets, zodiac signs, and also the paths on the tree of life. My notes says specific order. Not really. Just whatever order you want to. We can go off the order in the book. In the book, it's Mercury, Venus, the moon, Jupiter, Mars, the sun, and Saturn. But really, for what I'm about to share, it doesn't matter what order. Because, like with tarot, these things are going to be mixed up and studied independently. So once everybody has those down, just let me know. And I'm going to share the next piece of the puzzle. And hopefully you can, start putting this stuff together yourself. Veronica Archaga. Peace, Veronica. I love you. Hope you're having a great day. Hope you're having a great week. Okay. ARV says 100. All right, so here's the next thing. So, like I said, this is on page 127 if you have the book. If you don't have the book, next we're going to write down the tarot cards associated with those planets. So, with Mercury, the tarot card associated with it is the Magician, right? So you write down the Magician next to Mercury. With Venus, the tarot card associated with it is the Empress, right? The Moon, the card associated with that is the High Priestess. Jupiter, the card associated with that is the Wheel of Fortune. Hence why Starline mentioned what he said earlier about money and Thursday, and it all correlates. Mars, the card associated with Mars is the Tower. The Sun, the card associated with the Sun is of course the Sun. And then finally, Saturn, the card associated with Saturn is the universe. The universe. Okay, now here's what I want to point out. All these cards represent the different forces. If you have this book, you'll see why I picked out these specific ones, because these cards are also associated with the Hebrew alphabet, the letters of the Hebrew alphabet. And these are not merely letters. These letters have numerological significance, and they have other deeper correspondences that you can benefit from if you studied them. In specific, the Hebrew correspondences with these particular cards are the 7 double letters, which means that there are 2 sides to these symbols. And here are the 2 sides. Now, here's the last thing that I want you to write down next to these. When we talk about the polarities, right, the energies involved with these cards, with these specific symbols, are transitional energies. So we're dealing with the principle of polarity here. There's one extreme and the other extreme, and there are degrees in the middle, right? So with the first card, the Magician, the polarity you want to write down is the polarity of life and death. The Magician card, Mercury, rules over the powers of life and death, right? There's that polarity. The next is the Empress, and the polarity that the Empress card, Venus, rules over is peace and war. Peace and war. Who'd have thunk it, right? Matthew Watson, peace, peace. Louis, peace and greetings. Okay, so peace and war for the Empress, that's Venus. Next, the High Priestess, the Moon. The duality there is wisdom and folly. And as you write these down, just think about, how this makes sense. The High Priestess, the guardian of the secrets of the subconscious mind, of the occult. She rules over the duality of wisdom and folly. Next, we'll go to the Wheel of Fortune, which is Jupiter. That represents the duality of, you guessed it, riches and poverty, right? Wealth and being broke. Makes sense, right? Next, we have the Tower card, which represents Mars. And the polarity here with the Tower card is, as I said last night in the tarot reading, grace and indignation. Forgiveness or resentment. Grace and indignation. That's what Mars rules over. That's the Tower. Next is the Sun. The Sun rules over the polarity of fertility and barrenness. And then last but not least, Saturn, the Universe card. The duality ruled over here, the polarity here is power and servitude. Dominance and submission. Right? So let me know if you got that. Let me know if that was too fast. Tried to go at a reasonable pace. But I just wanted you to get those down just in case you don't have this book, because it relates to what I'm about to read from Dion Fortune, which is a very short 2-sentence paragraph, but it holds a master key within it. So let me know if you have that written down. Let me know if you missed one, because I'm going to move on from here. So we know that the planets are represented by those specific tarot cards. If you have this text, you'll see on the very next page the zodiac signs associated with the other major arcana cards. And these are not dualities or double letters. These are what's called simple letters. So they only represent simple aspects of the human experience. These cards represent aspects of the human experience. You don't have to write this down, but just going down the list, the Emperor represents Aries, that is sight. The Hierophant represents Taurus, that's hearing. The Lovers represents Gemini, that's smell. The Chariot represents Cancer, that's speech. Strength is Leo, that's taste. The Hermit is Virgo, that's sexual love. Justice is Libra, that's work. Death, that's Scorpio, that's movement. Temperance is Sagittarius, that's anger. The Devil represents Capricorn, that is mirth. The Star is Aquarius, that represents imagination. And the moon is Pisces, that represents sleep. So the totality of the human condition is represented by these tarot cards, specifically the major arcana. And as I went down that list, I can't help but think that it reminds me strongly of Tatwashuti. And in Tatwashuti, very close to page 45, where she, is it 45? Yeah, so in Tatwashuti, where she goes over, yep, 45. If you actually look on page 46 and 47, there's a very similar list that covers over the Indriyas, right? The Karmendriyas and the Jnanendriyas. And we get some of the same things, right? We get Shabda, which is sound, Sparsha, which is touch, Rupa, which is form, Rasa, which is taste, Gandha, which is smell, right? These things all correlate. When you're looking at these different occult subjects, occult topics, these different books, understand that they're not separate things. They're all talking about the same things. It's just what lexicon are we're using? What vocabulary are we using? Are we speaking in Vedic terms? Are we speaking in Kabbalistic terms? Are we speaking in Hermetic terms? Are we speaking in spooky, dark side, clip-off, Luciferian left-hand path terms? You want to figure out your language first, and then you want to look for the connections. Because of all the occult books that I've read, even read some of, which is hundreds, maybe, yeah, we'll say hundreds, that makes sense. They're all talking about the same stuff. And then you go over to the psychology books, it's all the same stuff. Now let's keep going. Look, all these books, make sure you have a copy of them. Because I'm telling you, this is not just like a waste of time or, oh, what a cute, casual, fun read. Like, no, there's some fundamental secrets in these texts. Okay, so 7 Hermetic principles, 7 planets, represented by 7 tarot cards, which reside over 7 polarities. Now, as you look at those 7 polarities, think about the last time you did a ritual to correct one of those polarities. Think about the last time you had a desire to correct one of those polarities. In fact, I want you to try to think of any ritual, magic, or desire that you had that did not fall under one of those categories of those 7 polarities. Let me know if you have experienced some type of desire or if you performed some type of ritual that was beyond the scope of those 7 polarities. Let me know. And also, if you're watching this video on YouTube, please hit the like button. This helps to appease the YouTube gods, which thereby helps to appease me. Yeah. All right, so let's keep going. And this is stuff that you know, right? We've gone over this to some degree many, many times. So let me know, is there any desire or ritual that you've done that doesn't fall up under the category of one of those 7 polarities? Life versus death, peace versus war, wisdom versus folly, riches versus poverty, grace versus indignation, fertility versus barrenness, power versus servitude. All right, brilliant. My gnosis says, shit, that's impossible, lol. You out of manifestation at that point. Right. See, there's a scope, there's a realm that we're working within, there is a limitation, there is a boundary to the human experience. Understand that it is not, see, this is what I have a personal polarity about humanity. On one hand, I hate humanity, disgusting, stupid, what a waste of time. And on the other hand, I love humanity. What a brilliant concept we are, what a brilliant species we are, what limitless potential we have, right? Look at how we can do so much with so little. I often bounce between those two feelings. I often bounce between those two feelings. But when I take those two polarities and put them together, right? Change them from being polarities into a unified expression, I start to transcend my personal feelings. Doesn't matter if I think that humanity is stupid or humanity is brilliant. It is what it is. It is what it is. And then you start to see the boundaries that humanity exists within. You start to see the limitations, the box. Speaking of which, if you have this book, right, I just mentioned the box that humanity exists within. I want you to find the cube of space on page 132, right? There's a box that the human experience exists within. Can't really see it from what I'm showing here, but you'll find that the human experience exists within a limited box. And when you're dealing with a spiritual experience, a metaphysical experience, a transcendental experience, if we want to talk about liberation, if we want to talk about expansion, the point and the goal of these meditations and practices, then you start accessing experiences that are outside of the box. Who'd have thunk it, right? Who'd have thunk it? And what if your spiritual path doesn't cover experiences that are outside the box? Are you actually doing spiritual work? Hey, guess what? Meditation is not supposed to make you happy. Meditation is not supposed to make you feel like, that's not the intention of it. It can. But in fact, the meditation practice, the practice of yoga, the spiritual path, this is not a fluffy fruitcake love and light walk. It's not designed to do that. It's designed to bring you face to face with the truth. With the truth. We live in an artificial reality. We live in an artificial world. We live in a matrix. And we don't even need computers for that. We live in an artificial world created out of these beliefs that are separated from nature. We live in an artificial world that is composed of beliefs that we have created as we get more and more separated from nature. We live in a world of illusions. I mean, look around you. The type of things that are talked about and discussed, the type of things that are propagated and presented before you in front of your phone, in front of your TV screen, and the dialogues between you and friends and family, none of this could have come about if it were not for the artificial box, the artificial environment that is gestating these things. This life of ours is an illusion, especially if you live in the Western world, right? Live in America. When was the last time that you were outside of the bombardment of Wi-Fi? When was the last time that you were outside of the bombardment of electromagnetic fields coming from machines? When was the last time? I can remember years ago when I used to cut off all the electronics when I went to bed. Who does that anymore? Now, even when you step outside your house, you're under the bombardment of these waves. Now, I'm not saying that these waves are doing anything to you specifically, but what I'm saying is that we are never, at this point, separated from our electronic devices in our artificial world. So, I said all that to say, a spiritual practice brings you face to face with the truth. A spiritual practice will start to shatter that reality, and it will become scary. It should become scary. It should challenge you. It should make you uncomfortable. It should make you uncomfortable. And I ask this question, do you even have a spiritual practice? Do you even have a spiritual practice? Every day, are you engaging in a spiritual practice? Do you set aside a certain number of hours in your day to actually practice spirituality, or do you just talk about it? Or do you just post pictures and memes, or do you just collect books? Like, I'm asking you specifically, do you actually have a spiritual practice? What is a spiritual practice? What does that mean to you? What does that consist of? What does that consist of? Hopefully, a spiritual practice of yours gives you an opportunity to take that awareness and that attention of yours and redirect it inward, away from this bombardment of distractions, away from this artificial reality that we have. I mean, just think about the social life. You get around people and you immediately start behaving in a certain way. You specifically wear your clothes and dress to convey a specific intention. Everything that we do has intention behind it. Everything. And most of that intention behind what we do is set in a frame of manipulation, a manipulation of perception. We want people to think this way about us, to feel this way about us. That's why we choose the clothes, the careers, the food, right? Everything that we do has this intentionality behind it that is set in this artificial reality. So your spiritual practice hopefully brings you to a point in your existence where you can separate from that. Because this is what I'm saying, off rip, from the get-go, we are already intentioning through artificiality. So the spiritual practice should take you a step before that, to where you can face existence without the intentions of manipulating the world for other people or manipulating the perceptions of other people. Your spiritual practice should take you out of this matrix. It should take you to a place where you're not having any consideration for what's going on out here, but only, what am I? What am I doing? What am I being? What's the point? What's the point? Why am I here? Right? These questions can only be answered outside of that box, not within it. You're not going to find the real answers in this box. You're not, because everything here is done with the intention of manipulation of the things within the box. Six Days In says, do you come into this realization after crossing Doth successfully? Absolutely. Absolutely. You come into that realization and much more. In fact, you come into that realization right there when you connect with your higher self. Of course, there's levels to it. And this is why we have the four worlds of the Qabalah. The lower world, the fourth world, Asaya, represents the physical body, right? The next world up represents your mind, your consciousness, the mental aspect of the self, your ego and all that. It's called the personality. The next world up, and that's Yetzirah, by the way. The next world up, Bria, that represents the higher self. That's the realm of the higher self. That's the tree of the higher self. And then finally, that highest tree of Atziluth represents that soul spark that we talked about in the cosmic doctrine. Atziluth represents the aspect of the self that is pure and comes directly from God, connected directly to God. So yeah, when you get to that point of coming into an awareness of your higher self, you start to realize all this. Because before that, you're only thinking within the box. Peace, American Chicano Cordier. Okay, so let's get to this Dion Fortune aspect here, this manifestation secret thing, right? Animal says, reminds me of the Tao. The real name is not the name you can say. Facts. Reality is everything outside the box, but everything we can know is inside. That's a great point. And I would say that that's largely because inside the box, we have an interface that we must interact with in order to interact with what's in the box. So just immediately when you cross that line into manifestation, cross that line into the microcosm, you're already wrapped up in this game. Like when I've talked about elemental spirits the past few videos and all that, it's not a choice. It's not like, oh, I want to work with elementals or I don't. Like, no, your life is elemental experience. There is no choice. This whole thing about free will, it's all elemental influence. You think that you have free will, but like go a few steps back. Why did you choose to do this? Why did you choose to think that way? Why did you pick those choices? Because even that's influenced by something else. It's all within the box. So your spiritual practice, right, of meditating, of actually studying the ancient texts, the holy texts, actually studying them, contemplating them, thinking about them, even having discussions about them, right? But mostly meditating and separating from the bombardment of social media and all that other stuff that you're doing, that you're engaged with in the world, separating from all that and taking some time to go within. And when I say go within, I mean to really analyze and observe the processes, the patterns that are happening, to really go within and examine and contemplate, asking questions, the right questions, and allowing for the space to open up so that answers can be received. Meditation and ritual is not about, oh, let me go do this and then get an immediate answer. Let me get an immediate vision. That doesn't always happen. You don't always get an immediate feedback. Sometimes your spiritual practice is planting seeds that take time to blossom. Justin Kurt Rivera says, is the astral plane infinite? Every plane is infinite. Every plane is infinite. Framestar Film says, one of my new daily practices is doing 108 reps on a rowing machine coupled with breaths of fire whilst focusing on my body of light. So physical action is a path to a deeper awareness of self. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, Framestar, there is an interview that I want to share with you. Matter of fact, I'll just post it in the chat because you just mentioned that about the importance of paying attention to the physical body while we do our spiritual stuff. Crucial. Let me pull up this interview, and I would suggest watching it. Some really good insight. Hold on, I gotta go to my history first. Give me just a second. I'm gonna share a link in the chat. Just open up this link in a new tab or something like that. Listen to this interview. There we go. There we go. I'm going to share this in the chat. So just pull this up on a new tab. Check that out if you got some time. You should have some time. Anna Molly says, physical action works for me too. Dancing or long hikes. Yeah, I think that we all can benefit from making sure that we tend to our physical aspect. It's easy to neglect, especially when we're talking about spirituality and the mind and all that. It's easy to neglect, right? I admittedly neglect it, and I should have more physical stuff, and that's something that I'm working on. My exercise bike has been collecting dust. All right, so yeah, let's get to this Dion Fortune quote here. So, like I said, this is coming from the book called The Circuit of Force by Dion Fortune. And I'm going to read from part 15. This is page 206 if you have it. If you have it, another great book. Man, anything written by Dion Fortune is going to be extremely insightful. Justin Kurt Rivera says, is Shiva the entirety of all existence? Absolutely. And I'll ask you a question. What does that even mean? How does that translate into your experience, right? Because I could say yes. Hell, I could say no. But even the words that we use, what is Shiva? What is the entirety of all existence? Like, what is that? What's the concept of that? Do you have the capacity to receive that concept? The entirety of all existence. Like, what does that mean? What does Shiva mean? Does Shiva mean a blue man sitting Indian style somewhere? I'm not saying you do. What I'm pointing out is that the questions are great, and let's develop a concept of the answer. Otherwise, it's just words. American Chicano Cordier says, oh man, that's the book she mentioned in her Book of the Dead. Yeah. All right, so here we go. All right, so this is page 206. She's talking about manifestation. And I'm going to read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs. So check this out. Manifestation takes place when the one divides into two that act and react on each other. Manifestation ends when the multiplicity is resolved or absorbed back into unity. The transition from plane to plane of manifestation takes place in the same manner. In order that anything or factor shall be brought down from higher to a lower plane, it is necessary to analyze it into the contradictory factors that are held in equilibrium in its nature. Do you get what that means? Did you catch that? The transition from plane to plane of manifestation takes place in the same manner. In order that anything or factor shall be brought down from a higher to a lower plane, it is necessary to analyze it into the contradictory factors that are held in equilibrium in its nature. To do this, one imagines the opposite extremes of which it is capable and expresses them separately while retaining in consciousness their essential unity when in equilibrium. Did you catch that? Did you catch what that means? Now here's the line. Here is the line. If you have this book, make sure you highlight this. Here it goes. She says, equally, if it is desired to raise any factor from a lower to a higher plane, one conceives its opposite and reconciles the pair in imagination and realization. With that excerpt right there, she literally told you all you need to know about manifestation. All the extra stuff about this, that, and the third, you can send that wherever. But this right here, if you understand what she said here, that's all you need. That's all you need. Equally, if it is desired to raise any factor from a lower to a higher plane, one conceives its opposite and reconciles the pair in imagination and realization. This is why we work with sigils. This is why you work with correspondence. This is why we do magic the way that it's done, because this is what's happening here. This is what's happening here. Okay, so let's keep going here. Let's keep going. That was the key line, but she's going to talk a little bit more to kind of flesh it out, so to speak. So, any pair of factors divided for the sake of manifestation act and react upon each other, alternately struggling to unite, and in the act of uniting, exchanging magnetism. And then their magnetism having been exchanged, repelling each other and striving to draw apart, thus re-establishing their separate individuality. Then, this established and a fresh charge of magnetism having been generated, once again they yearn towards each other in order to exchange magnetism, the more potent giving off and the less potent receiving the charge. It must never be forgotten in this respect that relative to potency, it must never be forgotten in this respect that relative potency is not a fixed thing, depending on mechanism or form, but a variable thing depending upon voltage or vitality. Moreover, the charge passes backwards and forwards as an alternating current, never with a permanent one-way flow. These are fundamentals of concept, and they have their application to every aspect of existence. Every aspect of existence, specifically 7. Ignorance of them and our inveterate tendency to try and maintain the status quo whenever and wherever it is established causes endless sterility, as needless as it is destructive and wasteful, and whose cause is utterly unsuspected. An illustration will serve to show the far-reaching ramifications of the influence of this principle. Apply these concepts to the relationship of initiator and candidate, of leader and follower, of man and woman. Then, having so applied them, reread these pages and see if you can see what is written between the lines. Wow. Peace, Nefrayu. Okay, so did you get anything out of that? Did any of that bring to mind any images, any concepts, or are you able to connect that with what I asked you to write down earlier? Does it make sense? Do you see what might have been written between the lines? Matthew Watson says, is that cosmic doctrine or another Dion Fortune gem? This is the Circuit of Force, another Dion Fortune gem. Louis asks, what causes endless sterility? I'll read that part again. She says that these fundamentals of concept, and they have their application, these are fundamentals of concept, and they have their application to every aspect of existence. Ignorance of them and our inveterate tendency to try and maintain the status quo whenever and wherever it is established causes endless sterility, as needless as it is destructive and wasteful, and whose cause is utterly unsuspected. So ignorance of these fundamental laws, ignorance of the fact that certain forces don't maintain their potency just because they were potent once. The potency of any force that we're working with depends on a back and forth exchange between the higher and the lower, between one end of their polarity and the other. Ignorance of that causes sterility, and also trying to maintain the status quo, trying to continue to be human and do the human stuff because it's the right thing to do, and what would they think of me, and or everybody else is wearing this and everyone else is talking about that, all that kind of shit. That's what causes endless sterility, because we're forsaking fundamental universal laws in exchange for human ego stuff, right? Louis says, love how I'm not like that at all. Right. MC Maestro says, sounds like the Chinese cycles of dynasties. When the ruling clan grew stagnant, they lost the will of heaven and were overthrown. Right. So check this out. Here's what I wanted to really point out. Here's what I wanted to really point out. That previous line where she says, I'm going to read these 2 paragraphs again. These are the most important. Check out this book if you don't have it already. Manifestation takes place when the one divides into 2. That's when manifestation takes place. When the one divides into 2 and they act and they react upon each other. Manifestation ends when multiplicity is resolved or absorbed back into unity. Now that can be applied to anything. On one level, that can be applied to you. Look at your multiplicity. You're a multiplicity of body and all the organs and all the cells. That's one multiplicity. Multiplicity of mind, because what is your personality? You got a bunch of memories. Then you have how you feel about those memories and how some of those memories create the frame of how you behave and act today. And they also set the frame of what you hope to do tomorrow, right? That's a bunch of multiplicities. How you identify, oh, I'm this, I'm that. Who even asked you, right? Who even asked you? And I'm saying that because we identify as XYZ because we feel like we have to. Who asked you to identify as anything? There's a multiplicity. Then we've got the multiplicity of our karma and our energy. We have the multiplicity of, it goes on and on and on. And the act of yoga, which is union, or the act of any spiritual practice that's worth its salt, because there are many. Once they are practiced on a regular basis, you start that process of unification. And this is why yoga leads to liberation. This is why a true spiritual practice leads to liberation, unification, and enlightenment, because you start to resolve all those differences. You start to resolve all those multiplicities. You start to become one again. You start to become whole again. You start to become defragmented. And it's not easy because we are attached to the things of this world, right? We're attached. Let's keep going. Also, when that line, manifestation takes place when the one divides into 2 that act and react on each other. Manifestation ends when the multiplicity is resolved or absorbed back into unity. Also, think about those 7 polarities that I gave earlier. They are divided, aren't they? They're split up, aren't they? So they manifest. You either manifest poverty or you manifest wealth. You only manifest one or the other. And what happens when they are resolved back into each other? There's no more need for it. There's no more need for it. Let's keep going. So the transition from plane to plane of manifestation, and I mentioned the 4 worlds of Qabalah: higher self, mind, lower self, God principle, 4 aspects of human. Oh, this background is funny. That background is funny. Okay. The transition from plane to plane of manifestation takes place in the same manner, in order that anything or factor shall be brought down from a higher to a lower plane. It is necessary to analyze it into the contradictory factors that are held in equilibrium in its nature. MC Maestro says neutralization. Absolutely. Absolutely. Framestar Film says, gotta keep that flux capacitor fired up to break through the time that divided us. Yes. I need to get me a new flux capacitor. I think mine's almost, mine's in need for an upgrade. Perhaps I can get one from AutoZone. So look at this now. The transition from plane to plane of manifestation takes place in the same manner, in order that anything or factor shall be brought down from the higher to the lower plane. It is necessary to do what? To analyze it into the contradictory factors that are held in equilibrium in its nature. So bottom line, if there's anything that you're trying to manifest, you've got to be able to recognize the contradictions of its nature. You've got to be able to recognize the polarity. It's a force, right? Say if you're trying to manifest sex, You're not actually trying, you're not working with that. You want to work with the energy that is behind that. And specific, we're dealing with fertility or barrenness. So you've got to be able to recognize those two polarities. The fact that you ain't getting none is barrenness, and what you're trying to invoke is fertility, right? That's the energy. The energy is when you're able to have the capacity to hold the concept of those dual principles resolved as one thing. We're talking about some mental transmutation here. We're talking about some magic here. You've got to be able to hold in your imagination both of those polarities combined as one thing. The same goes with wealth versus poorness. The same goes for war and peace. The same goes with wisdom and ignorance. The same goes with forgiveness and, what was the word she used? Indignation, grace and indignation. So if there are 7 specific polarities that we all deal with inside this box, wouldn't it be helpful to recognize the energies of those things in their neutral state so that you can work with their polarized state? Do you think that that would be useful? Do you think it would be appropriate? Ace, peace. Ace says, a few days ago it was mentioned that the state of nirvana is temporary. We must remember purpose of this life, especially as we progress in our spiritual practices and manifest favorable things. Facts. Man, nirvana, enlightenment, all that stuff is temporary. It has to be cultivated and maintained. I know from experience. I reached, we can argue or debate on degrees of it, but I know that I reached a very high state, and I learned firsthand that it has to be cultivated. And it's not easy, because there has to be a lot of adjustments to the mind, to the emotion, to the environment for such a thing to be cultivated and maintained. I strive to reach it again for sure, but it's got to be cultivated. Ace says, observe progression, yet remain neutral with the right amount of focus. And let's think about non-attachment when we deal with this stuff, right? And Amali says, you have to be able to deal with the cognitive dissonance and hold all options in your brain with no fighting for supremacy. Beautiful. I'm glad that you said that, right? To be able to hold these dualities without the cognitive dissonance throwing you off your game. Like I've said before about cognitive dissonance, as human beings, we will scramble and scrape, just the way that Diddy likes it. We will scramble and scrape to resolve cognitive dissonance. We hate it. We hate confusion. As animals, we hate confusion. So we have to develop the strength of will to bypass the need to get out of cognitive dissonance and learn how to flow within cognitive dissonance. Facts. And Amalia says they talk about that in science. To be a good research, you have to. And I would say to be a good magus, spiritual person, whatever the fuck title you want to give yourself, to be a good one of those, you have to be able to stand your ground within the realm of cognitive dissonance. Because you got to recognize when that animal body is scrambling and scraping for comfort, for pleasure, or for release from pain, when the animal body is scrambling, you got to be able to bypass that. You got to be able to rise above. Oh, and by the way, there's another polarity, pleasure and pain, which is the foundation of everything that we do, moving towards pleasure or moving away from pain. See, if you were able to resolve that duality into one thing, you could then turn it into a fuel source. You could rearrange your frames and turn it into a fuel source so that you're hurtling towards pleasure and propelling away from pain. You could turn it into a battery instead of being enslaved by it. You ever been enslaved to the pursuit of pleasure or enslaved to the fleeing from pain? Also connect this to what I said not long ago about these expressions of obsession, and how your expressions of obsession are evidence of the existence of elementals, of elemental spirits, of these nature spirits. That's evidence of them being in your territory. The fact that you're obsessed with something or committing to some type of pattern or habit or even addiction. And one of the best ways to transcend that is to offload that elemental expression onto something else. Keep in mind also what Dion Fortune mentioned in the book The Cosmic Doctrine about performing ritual, where you connect with the higher to perform on your behalf, and you connect with the lower to balance out the changes that you're making. This is all about formulas of energy. Formulas of energy. And the medium of expression is going to be your mind, your imagination. This is how it already works. This is how it already works. You won't see this information on MTV. Or maybe back in the day when they had liquid television. Back then you were able to kind of slip some stuff in those cartoons. Louis says we can be so self-sufficient. There's really no excuse to be a failure on this path. I agree with you. I agree with you. No diddy, no diddy. Lane Bailey says, is there a chance that I may be able to speak with Magus more about this one-on-one? I believe so. I believe so. Louis, peace, peace. We're double Louis'd up. We're double Louis'd. No diddy. All right, so there you have it, right? There you have it. Hopefully you're able to take that information and digest it and process it. Maybe it'll take some time. Maybe some ideas came to mind. If some ideas came to mind for you, let me know in the chat. Let me know in the chat. Let me know if what's been discussed here is something that you can apply. As far as what I gathered from this, instead of desiring things and seeking to manifest things and wanting this and wanting that, why not find that expression of your desire, right? You might want a new car. You might want a new phone. You might want a new something. Instead of focusing on that specific object, that specific symbol, bring it back a level and focus on the energy behind it. The energy behind it. As you focus on that energy behind it, find the duality within it. Find the paradox within it. Because that is its energy on the higher plane, right? For example, if you're trying to invoke wealth and money and abundance, you want to focus on the energy behind it, the polarity behind it, right? And what is the polarity behind it? What is the polarity behind it? You have to put together wealth and poverty. You have to look at that energy. Like, what does that look like? If you were to try to conceive, of that energy of wealth, poverty, how would that appear to you? Can you build a mental conception of what wealth, poverty is? You ever heard millionaires and rich people talk on their interviews, and they say that there's an energy to money, there's a spirit to money, you have to understand it, you have to work with it. This is what they're talking about. And the same goes for everything else: sex, occult wisdom, health, vitality, right? Having kids, like all that stuff. There's an energy behind these things. And if you're able to come into contact with it, you'll see that the energy involves not only its positive expression, but also its negative expression. And when you come into contact with that force as it is, now you can turn that duality, instead of this way, you can turn it this way. On the higher plane, it is wealth and poverty, right? On the higher plane, that's the two poles of wealth and poverty. But if you turn it this way, now you can manifest, right? You can turn upside down, poverty up here, wealth down here, where you are. You connect that pole, that circuit of force. Get this book, read that chapter again. Lane Bailey says, can someone get his attention? I missed something important. You have to throw up a crystal unicorn. That will get my attention. A crystal unicorn, my attention. Anna Molly says, yeah, I heard you don't let money have the driver's seat, but you got to have a nice comfy spot for money to sit. Yes. So look, when you're doing your money manifestation, consider what was said here. Consider what Dion Fortune wrote. Consider that tarot card specifically of the Wheel of Fortune. Meditate on that tarot card and see what you come into contact with. Right. Temple Magnolia, peace. Temple Magnolia says, hey, yo, definitely something I can apply. One thing that has taken me a while is figuring out what my neutral actually feels like. Okay, that's important. So you're on the way there, right? That's what it is, figuring out what that neutral, because what you're doing is you're balancing that energy. The best place to go to move that energy is to first balance it. The fact that you're doing your ritual or you have a desire is because it is imbalanced and you feel disconnected from it. So you're on the right track. You want to get into what that neutral space feels like, that balanced, harmonized, equal space is like. Excellent comment. Framestar Film says, harmony of thought, action, will, and intention. Yes, all those levels put together on the same page, not conflicting with each other. Joe Itama says, what has fasting has to do with manifesting? Well, the whole thing is fasting, it's going to affect you on different levels. Primarily, when you're fasting, it's going to put you into a mental state that's going to cause you to get more serious about what you're doing. Now that you're self-aware that you're neglecting a certain thing because you're trying to get something else, that's going to change how you move. It's going to change how you behave. On another level, your body, which requires sustenance, the physical body, the etheric body, they require physical food, energetic food. If you're fasting from food or from whatever is causing you to have whatever you're fasting from, once your body realizes, once the animal self realizes that you are no longer relying on standard sustenance, it's going to expand and stretch itself out and start reaching for other forms of sustenance. And the trick is, what you're hoping to do is you're hoping to angle and corral that energy to reach towards the thing that you're trying to get, to pull sustenance from the direction that you're fasting for, right? So fasting is more of a vehicle that should help you get into alignment in the direction of what you're trying to manifest. Number one, it's going to help your mind get focused. And number two, it's going to help to whip that animal body and steering it in the right direction. Louis says, master gratuity. Be grateful you have everything you already have. Facts. Gratitude. Temple Magnolia says, from that neutral space, I am able to observe something from many different angles and then accept all sides of it, but hold in my heart what is meant for me and therefore cannot be avoided. Facts. Righteous says, okay, now, what was that book? That was The Circuit of Force by Dion Fortune. It's The Circuit of Force by Dion Fortune. Louis says, so observe both while keeping your poise. That's the key. That's the key. And there's a lot of things that come with it, right? As you observe both sides, both aspects of that polarity, you find yourself becoming non-attached. Because when you enter the game, you're fixated on one end of that polarity. Oh, I'm fixated on wealth, right? But when you reach that state of neutrality, you start to release that attachment to wealth and releasing that attachment to poverty. And you can see a much more clear picture of the forces that you're working with. Everything in this plane has squeezed itself and filtered itself through polarity, duality. And what happens when you begin to resolve that duality? What happens when you begin to see from the perspective of neutral? You'll find that there are forces that controlled you and pushed you that no longer have an effect on you. Animali says you got to meditate and receive the instructions psychically. Yes. Staying centered. Joe Itama says neutral equals no desires. Right? And even better, not only is neutral no desires, neutral is now being able to use desire as a tool instead of a chain that you're attached to, like the devil card. The human, there's an aspect of you as the human being that must exist with desire, right? When you get hungry, you can put this thing to test, right? You said that you're going through fasting, right? You'll start to feel that. See, when you're well fed, it's easy to be neutral about the desire for food. But when you're hungry, when you're very hungry, when you've reached a limit and a territory that you've never reached before, now you're going to start to be able to put your money where your mouth is. You'll be able to start that practice for real. And what happens after you fasted enough times is you can master hunger. After you fasted enough times and you see the energy between being full and satiated and being empty and craving, once you find that duality and rise above it, you transcend hunger and you only eat when you want to eat. Now, there's a downside to that, right? Because you can go several days without eating and then you realize, oh shit, I should probably eat something because the body needs food. But yeah, once you fast enough from food, you master hunger. That's an easy one. Louis says, right, where there is tension, there is no peace. Facts. Nefrayu says, middle pillar, sattva. Perfect. Joe Itama says, that was good. I'm on fasting spree to get myself into alignment to heal my bones. Cool, cool, cool. I wish you great success. Framestar Film says, Alan Moore said all art is magic. And Andy Warhol said all art is money. So merge what often seems like disparate or opposite ideas into the same focus that energizes you. Boom. Yes, right? Yes. And here's the next level. What you're describing is the next level. We talked about established dualities, established polarities. Now we're starting, what you just mentioned is linking and connecting things that wouldn't necessarily be obvious at first, right? Connecting different things that may not have an obvious connection. Imagine what would happen when you start connecting polarities that seem as if they're not related. This neutrality that we talked about, you'll begin to experience on an even higher level. You begin to see the neutrality between computers and human beings. You start to see the neutrality between cars and milkshakes, right? And if you keep doing that, eventually you're going to connect enough dots and see what really exists behind the forms. That's some good stuff right there. Louis says, I'll do that. Usually I'd steer away from visualizing anything that wasn't beneficial to me, but I see it's a practice of non-attachments. Yeah. Have you ever heard of the Chode meditation? And that's a meditation where you literally visualize your death. You visualize demons ripping your flesh apart. I'm going to keep it real. I cried during that meditation. I did mine so intensely. But what you start to have is a disintegration of the fear of death. You start to disintegrate that attachment to the body. There is a space to visualize the things that you don't want when it's in conjunction with, when it's being polarized with the things that you do want. Ida Well says, I'll be still trying to stop my negative self-talk like crazy, LOL. Don't try, do. Recognize that that negative self-talk is a voice, an echo of someone from your past, most likely a caregiver, maybe a bully, older sibling, cousin, something of that nature. Recognize that that negative self-talk is the remaining echo of someone from your past. That's the first step. It's not you. It's not your voice. It's probably coming from, if you really go into meditation and listen to that negative self-talk, you'll see that it's coming from like above you or from behind you. Like if you were to just listen to that voice as it's echoing, you'll see that it's coming from behind you or above you. And that is a holographic imprint that came from when you were a child. It was probably somebody older than you, right? A parent or an aunt, uncle, grandma, some shit like that. Or maybe a classmate or a teacher or someone that you respected. You'll see it coming from that same angle because it's been imprinted into your holographic aura. Recognize that it's not you, it's an echo. And when you are in the midst of that negative self-talk and you hear it happening in your head, you can't do this, you'll never be shit, you're ugly, you're stupid, nobody loves you. When you start hearing that negative self-talk, I want you to press the pause button in that holographic aura of yours, because now that you can, here's the trick, once you locate where it's coming from, hit that pause button and respond to that voice as you would now that you know what you know about yourself. You're ugly, they'll never accept you. You pause that shit. As a matter of fact, I accept me. I know that I'm beautiful. I don't even need anybody to respond to me, right? Talk back to it. And as you go through this process, it'll take time. Start to lower the volume on that voice. Start to lower the volume. You don't have to do it all at once, but lower the volume. Press a button to make the voice more distant from you, further back into the space so you can barely hear it. Speed up that voice so it sounds like Mickey Mouse. Speed it down so it sounds low and deep. Alter the effect of the hologram, and you will alter the effect that it has on you. Do what I said. American Chicano Courtier says, Joy Tama, if you're looking to strengthen the bones, there's a book called Iron Shirt, something by Montauk Chia. Bone breathing and some other good stuff. Sorry, I'm a librarian. I had to. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Pick that up, Joy Tama. Pick that up. Discover the hero within. Peace and greetings. What a wonderful community. right. Animal says, for me, I can't really stop the negative stuff, but I can detach from it and bring up louder good thoughts. Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely a way to go. And like I said, it takes time. It takes time. And as you do that, lower the volume on that voice. Keep pushing it further back. I wonder how far away you can send that voice. I wonder how quiet you can make that voice. I wonder how high pitched and Mickey Mouse you can make that voice. Make that voice sound like the bad guy from Inspector Gadget. The claw. Ooh, beautiful observation, Matthew Watson. See, y'all are on it lately. Y'all are on it lately. Matthew Watson says, a shell being piloted by the elementals, that holographic thought form. Exactly. Because that person ain't there anymore. And here's the beautiful thing. Well, it's not beautiful, but it's the beautiful thing about the human experience. You created that shell, that voice in your head that's always saying that negative stuff. And elemental larvae have moved into it, and they continue to keep it alive because you continue to respond to it. You continue to embody the state that it puts you in. You continue to feed it and give it life. And elementals go to where there's food. That's why we as animals go to where there's food. Easiest way to manipulate the obedience of animals is to give them reward and punishment with food, right? That's how we train dogs and cats and elephants and monkeys and lions. And unfortunately, that's how some parents treat their kids. Fred the Boyju 2 says, is the Black Emperor from Star Wars. Yes. Louis says, throw some circus music in the background, right? Joey Thomas says, how can you be so sure you have shifted dimensions? Well, here's the thing. You got to set them parameters before you make your shift, right? You got to set them parameters. It's like if you're going to bake a cake, you don't start with just, hopefully, flour and creamer and eggs and just say, hey, whatever happens, happens. You mix up something, put it in the oven, and it comes out. Like, you have to have a concept of what a cake is first. You got to know what a successful, you got to have something that you're aiming towards, right? That way, once you start to make your cake, you know to do 2 eggs and this much flour and water, milk, or whatever else you put in there. You know to put it in the oven for X amount of minutes. And you have a concept of what it should look like physically when you take it out. And then you can check it off and say, you know what? It meets my criteria of success. I did it. You don't go into it blind. Same thing with this. Same thing with this. Do you have a criteria for success? That's how you know you have shifted dimension. That's how you know that you've done anything correctly. Cool. Joe, I got the book from eBay. Discover the Hero Within says, yes, adjusting the submodalities of our mental content can really make a major difference in our overall experience and well-being. Gotta know how to play the game. Somebody else does. There's somebody else who does. You better know too. You better know too. Okay, so I have shared an inspirational piece of text. I hope that you are able to use it. I hope that you're able to use it because it's useful and it's appropriate. When you find the neutral state of the desire, first off, you start to transcend attachment to one of the other polarities. And secondly, you have a better chance at controlling and manipulating that force. I gave you them 7 forces in the beginning of this video for a reason. Hopefully you're able to see that reason by now. Lane Bailey asks, how can we talk one-on-one? What are we going to talk about, Lane Bailey? Have you been listening to this video topic? Or because you keep typing the same thing over and over and over again, that's a red flag for me. Lane Bailey says, more about this. Okay, well, you can email me at travismagus777@gmail.com. Perhaps you could message me on the Instagram app. Louis says he's inviting you to an argument. Yeah, that's what I peeped from the beginning. Hence why I haven't really answered this incessant question. I know how this goes. This ain't my first rodeo. This ain't my first time making a YouTube video. This ain't my first time dealing with people. I study people, for crying out loud, you know? Have you even seen one of my videos before? Anyways, back to the topic. I've listed these books. I highly suggest that you grab a copy of these if you haven't already, because the dots connect across the board. And there's also something that I didn't mention, which is a connection between the 7 Hermetic principles of the Kybalion and those 7 planetary forces that I asked you to write down earlier. I'll leave that one up to you. You can study that one. All right, now for the hard part, saying goodbye. Now for the hard part. Is it ever really goodbye? Now it's time for so long. Power, servitude. And look, you even have a tarot card to meditate on when you're trying to tap into these forces, right? Good shit, good shit. MC Maestro says, is Trav hinting at how to neutralize the chakras? Show Bob Vajane. Observer, which book are we talking about here? There's 3 of them that I mentioned. There's the Circuit of Force, there's the Kabbalistic Tarot, there's the Kybalion. Proteus, Seer of Eons. Peace, my guy. Observer says, for the 7 laws of libation, Kybalion. Yeah, it's the Kybalion. This is, like I said, this is elementary level 1, first grade. The Kybalion. This is the specific cover that I have. It comes in a. Anybody can produce a copy of the Kybalion. I could make one if I wanted to. So I'm saying that to say that you'll see different covers. It's just the Kybalion by the 3 initiates. Yeah, there we go. MC Maestro says you can, if you look it up, you can get it for cheap anywhere. Okay, all right. Anything else? No, I think we're good. Once again, thank you all for being a part of this. I look forward to it all the time. We're going to continue our book study this Saturday. Right now we're doing Stalking the Wild Pendulum. We're going through that text, chapter 2. Hopefully you've received your copy by now. If not, once again, I suggest getting that book. Enchanted Cottage. Peace, peace. We're just wrapping it up here. So yeah, the book that we are currently studying right now on Saturday is Stalking the Wild Pendulum. Get yourself a copy of that book, tune in on Saturday. Thanks to everyone who donated for my birthday gift. It'll be on the way very soon. I highly appreciate that. I thank you so much. For sure, for sure. And I think that might be it. Find the polarity, find the duality, and the thing that you're trying to manifest, the thing that you're trying to tap into, find the polarity of it. The two extremes. Find the neutral point in the middle. Be that neutral point. Flip that polarity around like this, right? So instead of poverty and wealth, right, you locate where you are on that grid of poverty and wealth, rise above it and access the neutral aspect of it, of poverty, wealth combined as one thing, right? That's the true aspect of it. Anything that is manifested as a duality here in this plane, the true aspect of it is the two dualities neutralized. That's the true aspect of the thing. And that goes for anything. So if you find that wealth and poverty polarity and you meet it in the middle and you find the neutral version of it, now you can flip that bad boy upside down and have the wealth aspect in the manifest dimension and the poverty aspect in the whatever the higher dimension it is. Now you're probably going to have to do some robbing Peter to pay Paul to make sure that everything's balanced, or maybe not adjust things so much, or hang out in that neutral space and come to a realization where you can make what you have work out for you. There's a whole lot of different things to do. I gave you one piece of the puzzle because that's all we have time for. As a practicing magus that you are, you will find these secrets and many more. And many more. Thank you for the birthday wishes. All right. So yeah, that's that. MC Marshall says, when working with Akash elementals, they often appear to me with some type of dual imagery. Yeah. Here's a dual imagery. Find the combination of the lion and the serpent. Meditate on the lion and the serpent as one entity. Oh wait, they already have that out there, don't they? Think about all the special correspondences that you can gather from a lion symbology, occult symbol, and from a serpent occult symbol. And find out where they intersect and why they intersect. There's a reason for that. All right, good stuff. Let me get out of here for real. Again, if you have this book, read what was written about the strength card, the strength card, and why she's wrestling a lion specifically. Peace, Tony Mo. Tony Mo says, sup, y'all? Just came here by Universal Mastery's recommendation. You tell Universal Mastery I said, what's up? Tell him I said, what's up, and I hope he's having a great day. Tell him I said it. All right, so that's it, y'all. Make sure you have a spiritual practice, right? Not just on here talking about it, not just posting pictures and pretending and collecting books. Make sure that you are carving out time in your day to actually practice spirituality. Meditate, contemplate, study, like actually do this. Do it for real. And let it challenge you. Don't just do the easy stuff. Oh, I visualized flowers and ponies and unicorns. No. Look into the mirror of the self and find what's there, especially if it's disturbing. All right. Let me get out of here because I will literally keep on talking. Whoops. Okay, so have a great night, everybody. This is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX777. I love you all. Peace. That background is great. I won't use it again, I promise. I might use it again.